All right, good evening. Now, we do this blog on a regular basis at the end of the day to just break down the biggest news story of the day, right? And there's a lot going on, but if you look at your television channels, this is not the story they're discussing. This is a really important story because the rupee is at its worst it has ever been. And so that's why I want to talk about it. So, this is the journey of how I came upon this story, right? So, first question was, why is our stock market tanking? That brought us to what's happening with the rupee being at its worst ever. And I want to point out that if you look at Twitter or X, or if you look at social media, there's a lot of trolling going on about this subject because it's a very heavily political subject. When the current government, including the current finance minister, were in opposition, when Dr. Manmohan Singh was the prime minister, there was a lot of questions that were raised about the pride of India, the economy of India, basically what's going on, because at that point the rupee was at 68 to the dollar, and there were huge questions raised about how that government UPA 2 was incompetent in handling the rupee. Now we are at 86 to the dollar and then some. Today we fell more. The rupee fell more sharply in one day than it has done for over in 2 years, to be correct. Now, so a lot of the conversation that's happening is political, but I'm not having a political conversation here. I'm having a real world impact on our lives and an investment impact and what we could do in terms of investment. Now, before those of you who land up in the live chat or in the comment section and say, "Acha, agar expert ban gaye," I just want to point out that in my 20-year career, about 16 years was spent in business channels tracking mutual funds and stock market and rupee and all of these other things. So I didn't wake up this morning and decide to talk about the stock markets. I've been doing this for a while. All right. So let's take it piece by piece. First, I want to share this. One article with you, and we pull it up from the Mint, okay, about what happened in the stock market today, which is why I'm discussing it to begin with. The Sensex crashed 1,000 points, and the reason why this is a problem, because it's not just today. We've had a series of bad days on the stock market, right? So why has the Sensex crashed, and why is there a sell-off? A couple of things. One, oil. So obviously we know that India imports most of its oil, and the prices of oil has gone up sharply. According to a report by Reuters, oil has hit its highest level in more than 3 months, and this is because of US sanctions that will affect the price of Russia's crude. And because of that, and remember, India depends on imported oil. India has to buy it with dollars, which is why our market sort of felt very bad today. Investors have apparently lost 3 lakh crore rupees in one day. The second point in this article is that the rupee has hit fresh lows. Now, the rupee has been at lifetime lows regularly and it's going down further and further. And that's the story we're talking about. But I just want to take you through what else is happening. Now, there is a lot of nervousness about the fact that Monday next, which is the 20th of January, is when Donald Trump will take over as President of the United States and go back into the White House. Now, why is this important to our stock market? He has threatened to propose tariffs on countries including India because he's basically trying to strong arm some of the trade policies that he believes are currently unfair to US and India's favor. He wants to reverse that. And so we're a little cautious about what he might do because he seems like he means business, especially when it came to China. So India is sort of holding its breath, and that is why the Indian market is not looking very happy. The other thing that has happened is that there was a jobs report that came out in the US, and the US brings out a jobs report once a month about how many new jobs have been created within the US. And it was a good jobs report. It said that they've done well, much better than was expected by their stock market. But our stock market reacted badly. Why? Because as a result, their Fed, which is their RBI, will not likely reduce rates. And because the rates are high, and the US 10-year bond remained high, a lot of the money, the foreign money out of the Indian stock market went out of our Indian stock market and went towards the American market. And we lost a lot of what we call FIIs, which is foreign portfolio investors or foreign institutional investors. So we understand that foreign investors have sold Indian stocks worth 21,000 crore rupees up till January, and this is a massive sell-off, right? So there's a lot of money, and they've been in sell mode since October last year. So October, November, December, they sold about 16,000, nearly 17,000 crore rupees, and in January they've sold more than 21,000 crore rupees, and all of that money sort of bleeding out of our market into their market. It also affects the rupee when that happens. Plus, again, we are holding our breath about the fact that the union budget will be announced by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman in February. Normally happens in the first week of February. We don't know the date for sure. So between February 1st or 4th, that's when we expect it to happen. What will the government do this time? We don't know. See, because they've just come back after the win of the election. So they've got they've got to keep their allies happy, but they've got, a sort of runway in front of them. What will the government do? That's possibly what is weighing on the stock market. The other thing that's weighing on the stock market is the fact that our corporates have shown very poor profits or earnings in the first quarter of this, in the third quarter of this financial year. That's because the Indian consumer, and we put out a separate video on this, the Indian consumer is getting crushed by inflation and is not buying. And so a lot of the FMCG companies, or the companies that sell soap and shampoo and things like that, or companies like Nestle, for example, have turned around and said that the Indian middle class is not really buying as much as they used to, and so their profits are not looking as robust, which is why the stock market is a little upset. Why is the Indian middle class not buying? Because apart from expecting people to work 90 hours, they're not getting raises, and inflation has gone up. So you have an increased sort of cost of living because everything has become more expensive. The rates, the interest rates are really high. And at the same time, you're not getting raises at work. There are no new, fresh jobs. So you're not able to skip jobs. And that is what is generally weighing in. And then, of course, finally, and this is the important one, concerns on very slow GDP growth. Remember, now the expectation is that our GDP growth will be about 6.4 for this year, this financial year, sharply lower than the 7.5 that we were talking about earlier. That's not making everybody happy. That's the stock market. But of all of these reasons, and there were 8 reasons listed out in this article, we're going to specifically look at the Indian rupee. Now, I'm taking you to an article written by Reuters on the Indian stock market, which basically, on the Indian rupee, sorry. The rupee logs its biggest slide in 2 years on the dollar, and why that is happening. And that's what we're going to look at right now. We also have a couple of people in our timeline saying everything has become much more expensive. Where is the FI investment going, China or US? It's going to the US right now. All right, let me take you through this article, right? So what happened today? The rupees had a really bad day. We've ended the day at about 86 rupees and 57 paise, though it went down to 58 paise some point during the day. And we've lost about 2% on the rupee since December. If we scroll down on this article, which is what I'm going to do for you, there is a chart of how far the rupee has fallen in the last couple of years since October 2022, when we were at about 82 rupees. We're just going to find that chart. 1 second. So when we started at about, in October 2022, we were at 82 rupees to the dollar, and we're currently at 86 rupees to a dollar. So that's a really sharp slide. And one of the reasons why we're not doing much about it is because the RBI at this point doesn't have enough forex reserves to be able to intervene. So India's forex reserves have also fallen very sharply recently. And I'll just take you through that next article that talks about why India's forex reserves have fallen. We're at a 10-month low because, we've again pressure on the rupee, we're buying more oil, there's a lot of money going out because of oil, and that is why our forex reserves have fallen sharply as well. The question is there someone to blame? And I want to take you to this tweet that is by Sandeep Sabharwal, right? Sandeep Sabharwal used to be, he was formerly the head of SBI Mutual Fund. And he is also headed at some point JM Financial. He's a stock investor. He's basically said, if we go to that tweet, he said India's forex reserves have crashed to a 10-month low of 640 billion, which means that it's down by about 70 billion dollars. And he said that it's because the RBI governor, the previous RBI governor, who's now on his way out, had the policy of basically keeping the rupee stable by wasting huge forex reserves by artificially sort of propping it up. And as a result, he kept liquidity very tight, and that led to a slowing economy. Now, that's very severe criticism of the RBI governor. Um, Forgive the barking dog once. But what they're saying effectively is that the RBI governor used a lot of our reserves to prop up the rupee until now. And as a result, we don't have as much forex reserves as India is used to having, or India had at one point when we were at an all-time high. And now, basically, we've also led to a slow economy because of those policies, and we've got, we've run out of our forex reserves as well. But it's a combination of many things, like I pointed out. It's a combination of oil prices, a combination of the fact that the dollar is strengthening, that Donald Trump is coming into office, but at the same time, for whatever it's worth, we don't have the ability to intervene because we don't have the forex reserves that we should have, or the RBI seems reluctant to dip in further. We have a question by Nagarjun Rao who says, what is the middle class smoking? Why is there no protest like we saw in the UPA regime? Or are protests happening and it's not being shown in the media? Okay, so this is what I think. I believe that it's the media's job to bring a lot of these issues into perspective and to link it to your daily life. So you know that things are becoming more expensive, but for the average Indian, they don't know if it's just happening to them or it's happening to everybody. They know that they've not got a raise or they've not got a new job, or there are a couple of people who finished college at home who or finished school and are not getting jobs. They don't know if it's only happening to you or it's happening to everybody. Who's going to put that into perspective? The media has to put it into perspective. The media is not doing its job, as we know, whether that is about air pollution, and who has failed and why air pollution is where it is today, whether it is about why your city is so unlivable in terms of air, water, traffic, why everyone is struggling to simply get through the day. Who has failed there? Is it the city? Is it the state? Is it the central government? These are all jobs for the media to put into perspective, to investigate, to find out the truth, and the media has abdicated that position. And so as a result, there is no unification of cause among the people. The people and the citizens, let's be honest, is my opinion, citizens have forgotten how to citizen. You're paying your taxes and you're quietly going about your day. You're not asking questions. There's no accountability. Nobody is asking why, why is this happening? Why is this like this? There used to be a time when people would ask, why is my gas cylinder so expensive? Why are the onions so expensive? Why are the tomatoes so expensive? Now it almost seems like people are not asking those questions. People are not asking why we're living with worsening quality of air and worsening quality of water. There seems to be sort of a mismatch there, and we don't know what's really causing that. We have Ronau Zoro who says the RBI governor is the scapegoat. Well, technically, he should be held accountable for his policies, but I must point out that that was one opinion, that the RBI is responsible. But technically, we've reached a point now where there is also an assumption that the rupee will continue to fall. Now, what happens to us in this case? Inflation is going to go up further. To begin with, everything that you buy in your house, whether it is milk, sabzi, atta, comes in on the back of a truck into your city from the people who actually produce it. What happens when the rupee devalues against the dollar and we have to buy our crude oil from overseas? Crude becomes more expensive, petrol, diesel becomes more expensive, LPG becomes more expensive, CNG becomes more expensive. So every truck trip becomes more expensive and everything you buy will become more expensive. You will see the next thing that will happen is that you will see milk prices have been hiked. Um, you'll see food prices will go up again, and that is because crude oil has become more expensive for us because the rupee has devalued. So first thing that will happen is inflation will go up. The second thing that will happen is if you have, for example, a student who's studying overseas and you're paying fees in dollars, that's going to really hurt. It's going to become sharply more difficult for you. But if you are an NRI and you're living overseas right now and you have disposable income and you can move it to India and invest it in India, you will actually get more rupees per dollar. So it's good for NRIs, it's bad for resident Indians. In a lot of families, you have both. So maybe make use of that arbitration and see if you have NRI siblings or NRI family members who can send money back home. That actually will make more sense in investments. But the other thing that will happen, of course, is because inflation is high, the RBI will keep the rates high. So rates of home loans, auto loans, education loans will continue to stay high, and that's going to continue to hurt some more. Gold buying was a good strategy. Well, gold has actually done really well, and I've always been I've always been someone who has recommended using mutual funds via the SIP for the very long term. Gold has always seen as sort of a dud asset, but it's a dud asset that has performed and it has gone against everything that was said for the last 20 years. So maybe gold is not as dud as we thought it was going to be. But right now, this is where we are. Everything is going to become more expensive. Inflation is going to hurt more. We do know that the government has been concerned about the fact that corporate India took that nice, corporate tax cut that the government gave them a few years ago and did nothing with it. So they just made their own profits thicker and thicker, and they have not passed it on in terms of raises. They have not passed it on in terms of job creation or in investment. And that's going to be a problem because people need jobs, people need raises. Because inflation is going to make things more and more expensive. We have to ask questions. I think that as citizens, and I keep saying citizens need to be more active, right? You need to know who's responsible for the road outside your house. And you need to ask that person questions about the road outside your house. You need to know who's responsible for the air and the water that's coming into your house because you're paying for it. You also need to know who is responsible for making decisions on what happens when it comes to inflation and prices of food and prices of education, because you're going to pay for it whether you like it or not. Aman says, I feel this will give a boost to exporters like me. 100%. So if you're in a business, and this is the other angle, right? If you're in a business where you're manufacturing in India, but you're selling and your consumers are overseas and you're exporting, then obviously every dollar that you bring back home will mean more in terms of rupees. So it's a good thing for you. If you're in a business where you're importing a portion of your raw materials and you're manufacturing a finished good in India, it's going to become more difficult for you. The other thing that will happen is computers, laptops, cell phones, electronics in general, where either a portion, a part, or the entire thing is imported from overseas, all of that is going to become more expensive. Anything that you buy that's imported is going to become more expensive. So luxury goods, luxury cars, anything that where components are coming in from overseas will become more expensive as well. Maximum Potential says, I think the bigger problem is the lack of well-paying jobs, sustenance of wages, profits being shared. Absolutely, I completely agree. And these are people at the top who are saying, hey, let's all work on Sundays. And I think that sort of, it requires a complete relook. It requires a complete introspection on the part of the private sector, particularly. So that's where we are, guys. Things are going to get more expensive. Just a quick request to all of you to like this stream. It will help us on YouTube. The rupee is likely to hurt further, unfortunately. Like I said, if you're an NRI, this is a good time for you. If you're a resident Indian, ouchies. If you are a business that exports, good for you. If you're a business that imports any portion, this is going to hurt. And if you're someone who likes to buy imported goods or you're looking to buy electronics, that's going to hurt even further. Ask more questions of the government. Citizens need to citizen better. Okay, I will leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us. Like, share, subscribe, guys. If you can, sign up for our membership. It will help us. Share this video with others you believe should be asking more questions. Leave me a comment on what you believe is the reason why our economy is currently where it is at this point. All right, good night. Have a nice day.